Hi there, I'm Rob Bolton. This is McMeekin. We're in London today working on the D7UX work, and we've asked Anne along to help us look at the work we've been doing so far and to hopefully no big scary moments and just help us validate what we've kind of done so far. So Anne, can you introduce yourself maybe to the people behind the camera and kind of say who you are, what you've done?
Okay. I'm McMeekin. I am an accessibility consultant. I've been an accessibility consultant for about 4 or 5 years now, but freelance for about the last year. Before going freelance, I worked for RNIB as a web accessibility consultant, and as part of that work I was able to work with a whole bunch of different teams and different websites and help people make their websites better for people with disabilities, but also better for everyone.
Cool. So why have we asked Anne here at this time? I think it's certainly my experience, and Lisa's as well, that quite often accessibility, like usability, comes to the table way too late in the process. So we wanted the opportunity to get someone of Anne's expertise here where we're thinking about this stuff really early on. So what's your take on that, Anne? What do you see as important for you right here, right now?
From my point of view, it's fantastic to get the opportunity to feed into the process so early on, because too often what happens is I get brought in at the end to audit a site that's already been created, by which point there's been hours and months and sometimes years of work, and it just gets to the point where it's too late, and the amount of rework required to do the kind of changes that are needed is just too much. So to be able to feed into the system and have a look at what's already been created, add in some information about things that should be thought about, things that look like they might be problem areas, allows me to feed in that expertise, which allows people like yourself and Lisa to make sure that you're going in the right direction with the design, so that you don't then have to do a whole lot of rework, and so that the decisions that you're making in the design process aren't going to then make the job of implementing the design more difficult.
So we've spent this morning showing you through some of the wireframes and the sketches, and talking about our principles and all the work we've been doing for a couple of months. What are your first thoughts on that work?
First thoughts on the work so far is that there's been nothing that I've seen so far that's made me throw my hands up in horror or think, oh my god, that's going to be a really, really big problem, which is fantastic. There's some really interesting things going on in the work that you're trying to do to make this a really rich experience. And that's an area that can sometimes be problematic, because in implementing the kind of rich experience which makes it really great to use for people without disabilities, often what happens is then it becomes much more difficult for people with disabilities to use the system, which is a shame. But the work that I've seen in the wireframes that I've seen, there's scope there for the implementation to work for everybody as a whole. So I'm really confident that through the work that you're doing, that you're going to be able to create a great user experience for everyone.
Right, that's what we want. So, I mean, you briefly touched on some of the challenges that some of these rich experiences pose for accessibility concerns. Could you go into a little bit of detail about maybe two or three things that you think would create quite a challenge for us?
The thing about rich experiences, and particularly using sort of newer technologies or methodologies such as Ajax and things like that, is that there are specific technical and technological issues around people who use screen readers, and there are particular challenges. And while I'd love to stand here and say everybody's got it figured out already and it works and there are solutions, there aren't yet, but that also gives a fantastic opportunity. At the moment, support for accessible rich internet applications, which is a kind of framework on how to make these things accessible, isn't included in all of the browsers yet, but it's coming.
Right.
And thinking about them and putting that stuff into the code now means that hopefully once it becomes a full standard and the browsers all support it and the access technology all support it. It means that the kind of hacks and things that have to go in to make that work at the moment aren't needed anymore and can be quite easily pulled out and have it just work for people. Right. The important thing with doing any kind of rich internet application is to make sure that the base level is a great user experience, so that the fundamental things that have always been there in HTML, such as form interaction, when they are done properly, the user experience is great, and then you can add on any interactive bits and pieces, bells and whistles, light boxes, Ajax things, all that sort of stuff can be built on top, but the foundation is actually solid. So if, for example, you don't have JavaScript, you've still got a great experience and you're not feeling like you're being denied something, or that you've got a worse user experience where it's more difficult to use because you aren't able to use that particular technology.
Can I jump in with a question?
Yeah, go on.
I just thought of one that I didn't think about before. One of our design principles is about trying to help people make good design and user experience decisions while they're using sites with Drupal, or building sites using Drupal. That we were talking earlier about the guidelines for authoring tools accessibility, and that there's a kind of real similarity there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I'm an invited expert to the Authoring Tools Accessibility Guidelines Working Group, and I think it's a really, really important area, because accessibility isn't just about the web content accessibility guidelines, it's about helping people make better decisions. And at the moment we're working towards the ATAG, as it's known, Guidelines version 2, which will go along with the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines version 2. And the ATAG 2 basically has two parts to it. Part 1 being make the interface accessible, and part 2 being help people make better decisions, so that as they're creating a website, that they can make sure that the content, the output from that content management system or tool is actually going to be accessible. And it's great to be able to have this opportunity to be able to feed in to that, because it's fundamentally important. You can have, as so many content management systems these days, have output where the code's valid and there's support for alt text and all that sort of stuff, but the interface isn't accessible, or they've got an accessible interface but it's not flexible enough to allow people to do the kind of accessibility things that they really need to do. It doesn't have the flexibility or the power, so they're very, very constrained, and it seems like Drupal's such a powerful tool that it's great to be able to get in and have a chance to see how this could be something that would meet both parts of the Authoring Tool Accessibility Guidelines, and then become a really powerful tool for people to make awesome websites which work well for everyone.
Brilliant.
Great.
Well, it's excellent to have you aboard.
Yes, absolutely.
Great to be here.
And we'll talk more about this as we go through.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, guys.
Bye.